The answer came in the form of cold, hard cash. July 2003 marked a turning point when the U.S. military made an unprecedented announcement that would change the entire dynamic of the manhunt. They offered $25 million for information leading to the capture of Saddam Hussein, with an additional $15 million each for his sons Uday and Qusay. These bounties greatly exceeded previous rewards offered during the Cold War era, representing the annual income of thousands of Iraqi families. The announcement came with leaflets and posters featuring the 55 most wanted faces from the playing cards, including Saddam's photograph and contact information for coalition forces. These materials appeared on walls throughout Iraq within days. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Intelligence officers found themselves drowning in a flood of tips that arrived through phone calls, written messages, and personal visits to military bases. Iraqis who had never spoken to coalition forces suddenly appeared at checkpoints claiming they knew where Saddam was hiding. Some tips came from genuine sources who believed they had seen the former dictator, while others came from desperate people hoping to claim the massive reward with fabricated stories. Coalition forces received reports placing Saddam in dozens of different locations simultaneously. Callers claimed he was hiding in underground bunkers near Tikrit, in remote farmhouses outside Baghdad, in safe houses in Damascus, and even aboard ships in the Persian Gulf. Intelligence officers had to develop systems for quickly evaluating the credibility of each tip while avoiding the trap of dismissing legitimate information. They created verification protocols that required multiple sources or physical evidence before authorizing military operations. The cultural implications of the bounty system created unexpected complications within Iraqi society. Traditional tribal culture emphasized loyalty to family and community leaders above personal gain. Accepting money from foreign occupiers in exchange for betraying fellow Iraqis violated deeply held social norms. Many Iraqis viewed informants as traitors regardless of their motivations. This cultural resistance meant that the people most likely to have genuine information about Saddam were also the least likely to come forward for financial rewards. The informants who did come forward faced enormous personal risks. Insurgent groups had declared that anyone cooperating with coalition forces would be executed as a traitor, and these threats of execution for collaboration were widespread throughout Iraq. Informants had to hide their activities from neighbors, friends, and even family members who might disapprove or report them to resistance fighters. Some informants demanded meetings in remote locations at night to avoid being seen. Others insisted on communicating only through intermediaries to protect their identities. Intelligence officers documented dozens of false leads that sent troops on exhausting operations across Iraq. One tip led to a massive raid on a complex of buildings near Fallujah where informants claimed Saddam was meeting with former military commanders. Soldiers surrounded the area and searched every structure, only to find frightened civilians who had no connection to the former regime. Another report sent special operations forces on a nighttime mission to a supposed safe house in Mosul, where they discovered an empty building that had been abandoned for months. The most frustrating false leads came from informants who seemed to possess legitimate insider knowledge, but provided information that led nowhere. One man accurately described the layout of one of Saddam's former palaces and knew the names of several bodyguards, convincing intelligence officers that he had genuine access. His tip led to a raid on a compound outside Ramadi where he claimed Saddam was hiding. The operation involved hundreds of soldiers and took place in broad daylight to prevent escape. The target location turned out to be occupied by an extended family with no connection to Saddam whatsoever. Despite these setbacks, the bounty system inadvertently created a vast network of amateur spies throughout Iraq. Ordinary citizens began paying closer attention to unusual activities in their neighborhoods, watching for suspicious movements or unfamiliar faces. Taxi drivers started reporting passengers who seemed nervous or asked to be taken to remote locations. Shopkeepers noted customers who paid with unusually large amounts of cash or made bulk purchases of food and supplies. This citizen surveillance network provided a constant stream of low-level intelligence that helped coalition forces understand movement patterns and identify potential safe house locations. Military intelligence units developed sophisticated methods for assessing informant credibility without revealing their own knowledge. They would ask potential informants to provide details that only someone with genuine access would know, such as descriptions of specific rooms in houses or the names of security personnel. They cross-referenced new information against intelligence gathered from previous captures and interrogations. Teams of analysts worked around the clock to separate credible leads from fantasy and deliberate disinformation. Coalition forces understood that someone in Saddam's remaining protection network would eventually be tempted by the enormous financial reward. $25 million represented generational wealth that could transform the lives of entire extended families. The psychological pressure of knowing that such a massive reward was available created constant tension within Saddam's security circle, where each person knew that any of the others might choose money over loyalty at any moment. The strategic decision to publicize the bounty amounts served multiple purposes beyond simply attracting informants. Public knowledge of the reward sent a message throughout Iraq that cooperation with coalition forces offered real financial benefits. It also demonstrated to insurgent groups that their threats had not prevented the establishment of a system that could turn anyone into a potential informant. The bounty created an atmosphere of suspicion and paranoia that made it increasingly difficult for high-value targets to trust even their closest associates. As summer progressed, intelligence officers waited for the breakthrough that would validate their strategy. They needed proof that the massive financial incentives could overcome cultural resistance and personal loyalty. The answer would come from an unexpected source in a city where coalition forces had been searching for months without success. The sun's fall first, June 22nd, 2003. A man approached the gates of a coalition military base in Mosul carrying information that would change everything. He walked calmly past the concrete barriers and razor wire, requesting to speak with American intelligence officers. When soldiers brought him inside for questioning, he made a claim that seemed almost too good to be true. He knew where Uday and Qusay Hussein were hiding, and he was willing to provide their exact location. Intelligence officers who interviewed the informant had heard similar claims dozens of times before. False tips had become so common that many analysts automatically assumed new information was fabricated until proven otherwise. The man provided details about a large house in central Mosul, where he claimed the brothers had been staying for several weeks. He described their security arrangements, their daily routines, and even the types of weapons they carried. Unlike many previous informants who offered vague descriptions or secondhand rumors, this man spoke with the confidence of someone who had direct access to his targets. The intelligence team spent 3 days verifying the information through independent sources and surveillance operations. They confirmed that the house existed at the location described and that unusual security activity had been observed in the area. Neighbors reported seeing armed men moving in and out of the property at irregular hours. Local shopkeepers mentioned customers who paid for large quantities of food with unusually crisp currency. These details aligned with patterns that intelligence analysts had learned to associate with high-value targets in hiding. Military planners recognized that this operation represented their best chance to capture members of Saddam's immediate family since the invasion began. However, they also understood that the intelligence could be part of an elaborate trap designed to lure coalition forces into an ambush. Iraqi insurgents had previously used false information to draw American troops into prepared killing zones. The house in Mosul could contain a dozen fighters waiting for coalition forces to assault the building, or it could be rigged with explosives designed to kill anyone who entered. Task Force 20, the elite unit responsible for hunting high-value targets, received orders to surround the target house before dawn on June 22nd. The informant guided troops to the specific safe house coordinates, providing detailed directions that led coalition forces directly to their target. Soldiers established a perimeter around the entire neighborhood to prevent escape, while assault teams prepared to enter the building. Intelligence officers positioned themselves nearby to observe the operation and verify the identities of anyone captured or killed. The operation began at sunrise when soldiers approached the house and called for the occupants to surrender. Instead of compliance, gunfire erupted from multiple windows as the defenders opened fire with automatic weapons and rocket-propelled grenades. The intensity of the resistance immediately confirmed that this was not an ordinary safe house. Whoever was inside possessed significant firepower and appeared willing to fight to the death rather than surrender to coalition forces. The firefight continued for 4 hours as soldiers attempted to advance toward the building while defenders maintained their positions inside. American forces used helicopters to provide cover fire and prevent escape attempts, but the brothers and their bodyguards refused every demand to surrender. Coalition commanders realized that standard assault tactics would result in heavy casualties among their own troops without guaranteeing the capture of the targets. The defenders had chosen their position well, with clear fields of fire and multiple defensive positions throughout the house. Military leaders made the decision to use TOW missiles against the building rather than risk additional American lives in a prolonged ground assault. This choice reflected the desperate desire for concrete results after months of failed operations and false leads. The missiles would almost certainly kill everyone inside the house, but commanders determined that eliminating Uday and Qusay was more valuable than the intelligence that might be gained from their interrogation. The missile strikes brought the firefight to an abrupt end. When soldiers finally entered the destroyed building, they found 4 bodies, including 2 that dental records later confirmed as Uday and Qusay Hussein. The brothers had fought alongside their bodyguards until the very end, choosing death over capture. Their bodies showed multiple gunshot wounds in addition to injuries from the missile strikes, indicating they had continued fighting even after being wounded during the initial firefight. The deaths of his sons produced an unexpected reaction from Saddam himself. Within days of the raid, audio recordings began circulating throughout Iraq featuring a voice claiming to be the former dictator. The speaker mourned his sons as martyrs while vowing to continue fighting against the occupation. Intelligence analysts confirmed that voice analysis matched previous recordings of Saddam, proving that he was still alive and monitoring events throughout the country. His willingness to break communication silence for his sons revealed the emotional impact of their deaths. Coalition forces celebrated the elimination of Uday and Qusay as their first major success in the manhunt for former regime leadership. The operation validated the bounty system by proving that financial incentives could produce actionable intelligence from informants with genuine access to high-value targets. Word spread quickly throughout Iraq that the Americans had honored their promise to pay the full reward amount to the informant who provided the information. The informant was later paid $30 million and relocated for his safety. The success in Mosul created a surge in tips and leads as Iraqis began to believe that cooperation with coalition forces could provide both financial rewards and protection from retaliation. Intelligence officers noticed an immediate improvement in the quality of information they received, with more informants providing specific details that could be independently verified. However, the decision to use missiles rather than capture the brothers alive eliminated valuable intelligence opportunities. Uday and Qusay possessed detailed knowledge about their father's security arrangements, his network of loyal supporters, and his likely hiding places. Their interrogation could have provided the breakthrough information needed to locate Saddam quickly. Saddam Hussein was now completely alone in a country where $25 million waited for anyone willing to reveal his location. The most wanted man in the world had lost his sons, his government, and most of his protection network. But the fundamental challenge remained unchanged. Coalition forces still needed a new approach to penetrate the inner circle of people who knew where Saddam was hiding. The answer would come from an unexpected Bodyguard source who understood that everyone had been hunting the wrong people forward operating base danger in Tikrit in December 2003 with a background that set him apart from other soldiers hunting Saddam Hussein. As an intelligence analyst and interrogator attached to Task Force 121, Maddox had developed a reputation for using empathy-based questioning techniques rather than force to extract information from detainees. His approach emphasized building trust and offering protection guarantees to secure cooperation from reluctant sources. The conventional approach treated Saddam's capture as a political problem requiring political solutions. Intelligence teams concentrated their efforts on former ministers, military generals, and Ba'ath Party officials who had held formal positions in the government. The assumption was that these powerful individuals possessed both the knowledge and resources necessary to protect their former leader. Maddox recognized a fundamental flaw in this reasoning. Former regime officials had lost their power when the government collapsed. They no longer controlled military units, government resources, or intelligence networks that could effectively hide someone from coalition forces. Maddox studied Saddam's personal security arrangements during his years in power and discovered a sophisticated protection system that operated independently of the government structure. The outer layer consisted of ceremonial guards and official security personnel who provided visible protection during public appearances. The middle layer included trusted military officers and intelligence operatives who handled logistics and coordination. But the inner circle comprised a small group of personal bodyguards who maintained physical proximity to Saddam at all times and knew his exact location on any given day. This inner circle represented the key to finding Saddam because these men had developed personal relationships with their principal that transcended political loyalty. Unlike government officials who served the regime, bodyguards served the individual. Their job was to protect Saddam's physical safety regardless of changing political circumstances. When governments fall, ministers and generals typically abandon their former leaders to save themselves. Bodyguards, however, maintain their protective instincts even after their official duties end. Maddox shifted his investigation toward the al-Muslit family in Tikrit, a tribal clan that had provided personal security for Saddam for decades. This family had produced multiple generations of bodyguards who had worked closely with Saddam since his early days in politics. Unlike the revolving door of government appointees, the al-Muslit men had maintained continuous access to Saddam throughout his rise to power. Their loyalty was based on tribal connections and personal relationships rather than political convenience. Over the following months, Maddox conducted approximately 300 interviews with family members, former associates, and local residents to map these complex relationships. The process required painstaking detective work that resembled genealogical research more than military intelligence gathering. He studied marriage records, traced property ownership, and identified which family members had worked directly with Saddam, which ones lived in strategic locations, and which ones possessed the resources necessary to support someone in hiding. Traditional military thinking had completely overlooked the obvious reality that bodyguards represent the most dangerous enemies and the most valuable allies. These men possessed detailed knowledge about their principals' habits, preferences, and security protocols. They understood how Saddam thought about danger and where he felt safe. More importantly, they maintained emotional bonds with their former leader that political appointees never developed. Bodyguards had risked their lives for Saddam repeatedly and viewed their protective role as a matter of personal honor. The cultural dimensions of these relationships proved crucial to understanding why certain people would continue protecting Saddam despite enormous financial incentives to betray him. In Iraqi tribal society, serving as someone's bodyguard created obligations that extended beyond formal employment. These men had sworn oaths to protect Saddam with their lives, and breaking such oaths would bring shame upon their families for generations. The $25 million bounty represented enormous wealth, but it could not overcome cultural bonds that had developed over decades of shared danger. Maddox's superiors initially viewed his theories with skepticism because they contradicted established intelligence doctrine. Most military officers believed that hunting high-value targets required focusing on the most powerful and well-connected individuals in the former regime. The idea that low-ranking bodyguards might possess more valuable information than government. Ministers seemed counterintuitive to people trained in conventional military hierarchy. Maddox faced resistance from commanders who preferred to continue targeting former officials rather than pursuing his unproven theories about personal relationships. Despite this institutional skepticism, Maddox continued developing his understanding of Saddam's personal security network through his systematic interrogation approach. He identified several al-Muslit family members who had served as bodyguards and mapped their current locations throughout the Tikrit region. Each family member represented a potential link in the chain that connected Saddam to his protectors. Maddox understood that finding any one of these individuals could provide the breakthrough intelligence needed to locate others in the network. Through careful analysis of interrogation reports and family interviews, one name began to emerge as particularly significant within the al-Muslit protection network. Mohammed Ibrahim Omar al-Muslit had served as one of Saddam's most trusted personal bodyguards for over 15 years. Unlike many other security personnel who rotated through different assignments, Mohammed Ibrahim had maintained continuous access to Saddam throughout the 1990s and up until the invasion began. His long service record suggested an exceptionally close relationship with the former dictator. Intelligence reports indicated that Mohammed Ibrahim possessed detailed knowledge about Saddam's personal habits and security preferences that other bodyguards might not have learned. He had accompanied Saddam on family visits, hunting trips, and unofficial travel that revealed the dictator's private personality beyond his public persona. This intimate knowledge made Mohammed Ibrahim uniquely valuable as both a protector and a potential source of intelligence about where Saddam might choose to hide. Maddox's investigation revealed that Mohammed Ibrahim had disappeared from his known residences shortly before the invasion began, suggesting that he had joined Saddam's security detail during the transition to underground operations. Unlike government officials who fled Iraq or attempted to blend into civilian life, Mohammed Ibrahim's disappearance aligned with the pattern of behavior expected from someone actively protecting a fugitive. His absence from normal family activities indicated ongoing involvement with Saddam's security arrangements. The more Maddox learned about Mohammed Ibrahim's background and relationships, the more convinced he became that this individual represented the key to solving the entire manhunt. Mohammed Ibrahim possessed the knowledge, loyalty, and access necessary to protect Saddam effectively. More importantly, he maintained family connections in the Tikrit region that could provide logistical support for someone in hiding. Finding Mohammed Ibrahim would either lead directly to Saddam or provide intelligence that would make finding Saddam inevitable. Maddox's bodyguard theory represented a fundamental shift in how intelligence analysts approached the problem of hunting high-value targets. Instead of focusing on political power structures that had collapsed, the theory emphasized personal relationships that survived political change. Instead of targeting the most obvious suspects, it identified the most loyal protectors. This approach would require different interrogation techniques and different investigation methods that treated each family member as a piece of a larger puzzle that needed to be assembled carefully. The spider web closes. Maddox developed a systematic approach to mapping Mohammed Ibrahim's family network that resembled building a criminal investigation more than conducting military operations. He began by identifying every known relative of Mohammed Ibrahim within the al-Muslit clan, creating detailed charts that showed marriages, business partnerships, and property ownership. Each family member represented a potential source of information about Mohammed Ibrahim's current activities and whereabouts. Maddox understood that people in hiding depend on family support networks for basic necessities like food, money, and shelter. The interrogation process required careful psychological manipulation rather than aggressive questioning. Maddox recognized that family members would never deliberately betray Mohammed Ibrahim if they understood the purpose of the questions.